Snoopy actually met her girlfriend through YouTube. She commented on Snoopy's video and she found out they lived in the same small country. They started chatting through Skype and Snoopy fell for her quickly. After about 5 months, the girl confessed to her and she was shocked. They decided to go out with each other. They've met up many times now and are planning to get into the same college.
This happened I think about a year ago, and it still pisses me off. I was in a building that had about 10 floors, quite a few number of tenants. And me and Gooby were just kind of lounging around minding our own business, asleep I think, and then the fire alarm went off. And so we were scrambling all over the fucking apartment, you know, grabbing some shit, trying to get the cat into her fucking box. She just would not get in the box, she was just being a pain in the ass. And then finally, we managed it and went out the front of the building with everyone else, and we were waiting, you know, oh my god, there's a fire, everyone's gonna die. And then the firemen came, and then they left, and I asked them, hey, what happened? They were like, oh, one of your neighbors was smoking outside, and they must have left it and not put it out, and so it triggered the alarm. I'm like, what? It's stupid! And so we all had to get up at 3 a.m. and wait for like an hour in morbid terror. That's not the worst part. The worst part is while I was looking for my cat, my keys fell off my chain and I was locked out of my apartment all night because the real estate that had the backup keys weren't open until 9 a.m. And so Gooby and I luckily met a neighbor that let us stay over there for the night. And then we went out, we got some breakfast, we came back, got the spare key and got inside. All because some dickhead, probably helping, didn't put out their fucking cigarette. When Nixium was in elementary school, there was this mean boy that would hit him and take his stuff. He had a crush on this new girl, and Nixium lied to her saying that the mean boy, he killed a puppy because she liked puppies and owns one. So she went over to the boy and kicked him and spat in his face and said, "Don't you come near me, you shitbag puppy killer." He cried and went over to the teacher, and since she was new, she got away with it. And Nixium also told the teacher that he was a bully. She became his best friend forever, and the boy never pissed them off again.
One time, Ramona had a big drunken night out with her friends. She caught a taxi home, but when she got to the door, she couldn't find her keys. Since it was so late, she just kinda said, fuck it, and went to sleep right there on her front porch. The next morning, she woke up and found her keys were in her left hand the whole damn time.
Pringle's worst joke goes something like, a party of adventurers walked into a witch's cottage. A black cat leapt onto the table. Hey look, one adventurer said with enthusiasm, it's one of those witch's cats. Actually, stated the more educated one in the bunch, they are referred to as familiars. The third person, who was a little bit dull, looked at the cat in confusion and mused, it doesn't look very familiar to me. Yep, that's it. That's the joke. Did you laugh? You didn't laugh. When Spinal Palm was 6, he was at an old white house with a pink roof where his family was taking a tour. He ran off with his cousins and went swimming in a large, dirty, murky pool. Spinal Palm was in the pool when suddenly alligators would swim towards him, but he would escape just barely. Years later, he had another nightmare about returning to that house. There was a horseback riding event, and he participated. His horse, a large brown one, was out of control and crazy. Spinal Palm was eventually thrown off and the horse retreated into the crowd. Spinal Palm watched in horror as a boy got his skull crushed by the stomp of the horse. A couple years later, he was at the house again. There was a fire at the house with his family inside, and he had lost the ability to speak.
One day, Spinal Palm stumbled upon the MMORPG Guild Wars 2. He hadn't found a group in the game until a message appeared in the chat about the guild searching for members. He was bored and thought, hey, why not? A girl he didn't know also happened to see the message. She had never been in a guild before, but the members seemed nice, so she decided to join as well. They both ran around in the guild every once in a while. Spinal Palm was more active, while the girl was on occasionally and not very talkative. One day, he was in an area in the game that was quite new to him, so Spinal Palm asked the guild if anyone would like to join him. The girl happened to be online and decided that she would tag along. They ended up running around for hours. From then on, they spent many late nights hanging out in the game and chatting. 3 months on, and Spinal Palm was ready to confess his feelings to the girl. She reciprocated, and they are still together. Once, when Tolop was at school, he decided to eat his sweet snacks only. He went and sat on the bench in the field, and after opening his lunch, he pulled out 10 different sweets. When he started eating them, the teacher strolled by and looked over his shoulder. She saw the 4 empty wrappers and looked at the other 6 sweets and said to him, "Haven't you read the new rule in the school diary?" Then she took all his sweets and dumped them in the bin. Tolop was in so much shock that he went up to the school principal and asked him about it. All he had to say was, "I'm sorry, but many parents are blaming us for tooth decay for selling sweets and allowing them at school." He walked away, so Tolop decided not to get angry, but to get even. He went home and planned his revenge. He made 12 batches of cupcakes, but without the sugar and salt. He put a cupcake on almost every teacher's desk with a little note on the bottom of the cupcake paper saying, "Since sweets are banned, I made all the teachers sugarless cupcakes so they aren't sweets anymore. Enjoy!" The ban was lifted and the principal gave Tolop a detention, but also thanked him.
Ghost Toast was talking with a few friends at an anime convention while dressed as Dragon Ball Z characters. He noticed a guy who kept giving him weird looks from across the room. The man just looked like a regular dude, not dressed up or anything. Ghost Toast was mid-conversation when he demonstrated a Kamehameha wave with his hands, and just then, the dude from across the room started freaking out. He ran up to Ghost Toast and said, "The gesture you just made with your hands is a sign of Satan, and if you don't cut it out, he will come here and he will eat you alive." Then he started flailing his arms in the air and he ran out the door. Ghost Toast never saw him again, but to this day, he wonders how that move could have possibly have woken up Satan himself.
Emoji went to a Catholic school, and in first grade she had a teacher who she suspected might actually be a witch. She had brought a new pencil box filled with everything she needed for the year, and on the second day the teacher took it and threw it out because she was using a colored pencil on an assignment. The horror. A few days later she made Emoji stand in the trash when she asked for a pencil from her friend Pandora. And get this, every year she actually dressed like a witch for Halloween. Coincidence? Nah, confirmed witch.
When he was 5, Gergak heard that if you cut yourself, you should spit on the cut and then put some dirt on it. One day, in kindergarten, a friend of Gergak's, Mikhailim, cut himself while swinging on a swing set during recess. Gergak told him to spit on the cut and put dirt on it, which Mikhailim did. But instead of dirt, he used sand in the sandbox. Not long after, Gergak didn't see Mikhailim for several weeks. He later learned that Mikhailim got tetanus. Can we get an F in the chat, boys?
One day, an old man decided to sit next to Melissa at a bus stop. They sat in silence for a while, and then the old man kept trying to tell her jokes. He insisted on talking to her. She sighed, and she decided to acknowledge him. "What does a rock say to another rock?" he asked her. "I don't know," she replied with a tone that insisted that she did not care. "Life is hard," he whispered to her. She shuddered, and she thanked her bird god when the bus finally arrived.
So, one time I stayed the night at one of my friend's houses, and another one of our friend was sleeping in a different bedroom. That morning we had to wake up early, so when I went into the bedroom to wake up the other friend, he was sitting on the computer chair, the lights were on, he was in his boxers, and his hand was down his pants. But he was asleep. It was so funny trying to wake him up for him to realize the position he was in. It was weird.
Doopy's weirdest secret definitely does not involve baggy clothes. Whenever her roommate goes out of town, Doopy likes to strip off and waltz around their apartment completely naked. Now it sounds harmless, right? Unfortunately, it has backfired on her quite a few times. One time, Doopy's roommate unexpectedly came home from a trip and Doopy was doing some nude cooking at the time and had to scramble to cover herself with some hand towels. Talk about awkward. I hope she washed them.
When Slaptam was about 8, he would sneak upstairs when nobody was home and eat lots of food. His parents had no idea until one day when they found a couple of drops of melted pineapple flavored Mr. Freeze on the carpet. At the time, they had 2 cats, and Slaptam lied and said that one of the cats had pissed on the carpet, and they believed him. After that, they never suspected a thing. In Doopy's Spanish class, there was a girl Andy Mations who acted like a cat. One day, while she was working on something, Doopy heard Andy hissing. She looked over to see Andy hitting a guy with a notebook. Pissed off, the guy took a pair of scissors and cut off a big chunk of her hair. Andy stopped hitting him and watched as her hair fell to the floor. At that point, Andy got very angry and furiously hit the guy with the notebook while hissing. She kept hitting him until he was escorted out by security. When he did, Andy just sat there with a blank expression on her face. Doopy later learned that Andy was hitting the guy because he said that dogs were better than cats. Ooh, that is contentious.
When Honeybits was in elementary school, there was a weird kid that was in love with her. He would tell everyone that she was his girlfriend and that she was pregnant with his baby, all of which was a lie. Despite asking the kid to stop, he kept stalking her and telling lies. 3 years later, when she was in the 7th grade, Honeybits didn't see the kid anymore and was happy. That was until she went grocery shopping with her mom one day. When she saw the kid, her mom asked if that was her stalker. Honeybits said that he was, and her mom ran up to him and his mom and started talking to them. She walked closer to them and heard her mom say, "My daughter does miss your son a lot." Honeybits felt like throwing up. Then, when the kid stepped closer to Honeybits, her mom pushed her closer to him, and he kissed her. And if that wasn't bad enough, her mom also gave the kid Honeybits' phone number and social media info. Legna was a fan of an illustrator named Jolly, who had made some fan art from his stories. He followed her work for a while before deciding to leave a comment. He had never seen anyone put so much detail into a painting. He talked about her a few times to his friend Tomboy. One day, Tomboy decided to make a Minecraft recorded series and invited a bunch of people to record. Much to Legna's surprise, his friend had invited Jolly. She said yes, unaware that Legna would be there. When she saw Legna, she flipped out. He waltzed right up to her and talked to her like it was nothing. After that recording session, they started role-playing together and talking almost every day. They began collaborating on projects and gradually realized how much they liked each other. They have been together for 2 years and have their own comic series.
Ladybot went to an event where all the clubs advertised themselves for new members. There was an LGBT club and Ladybot was interested in joining. She went up to the booth and wanted to make an impression, so instead of just shaking their hand, she shook their hand and yelled,
"Hey, I'm Levi. You get a piece of retard llama."
The person smiled politely as their eyes went wide with fear. Ladybot realized right then that it was just a bit too random. She just quickly signed her name and email and walked quietly to the next booth. To be fair, that does sound like something Ladybot would say, so. Doopy was really nervous when her mum told her that they were going to go to a dinner at a Texan steakhouse. She'd never been there before and was worried about what decor they were going to have. You see, Doopy has a terrible phobia of corpses and was afraid the restaurant might have some taxidermy animals. When they arrived, Doopy looked around the restaurant in a panic. She couldn't see any dead animals, so she ended up breathing a big sigh of relief. They were about to be taken to the table when Doopy looked up. Right above her was the biggest severed moose head she'd ever seen. Doopy immediately screamed at the top of her lungs, ran towards the exit as quickly as she could. In her panic, she ran straight into the door. Took her a few goes to get it open. Doopy's poor family were left standing there in shock with the whole restaurant staring at him. Her mum had to explain Doopy's unusual phobia to the doorman before going out to comfort her. At the time, Doopy was more terrified than embarrassed, but she knows she did an excellent job of embarrassing her whole goddamn family.
When Melissa was about 16 years old, her parents were divorced and she would visit her mom one weekend a month. Well, one day she was staying with her mom when she decided to take a bath. Melissa used to do this thing where she would stand naked in front of the tub for 5 to 10 minutes, dancing along to music. But this time, she was overcome with horror when her mom barged into the bathroom during a particularly crazy nude dance. She quickly scrabbled for a towel as her mom laughed so hard and shut the door behind her, yelling, "Oops, sorry." Melissa always remembers to lock the door now. When Gergak was in the 4th grade, he started feeling a bit insecure. He heard that if you completely strip down, stand in front of a mirror and list everything you like about yourself, it makes you feel more confident. So he tried this. He stood in front of a mirror in his room. He was up to 5 things he liked when his mom suddenly opened the door and asked what he wanted for dinner. She just stopped and stared while he stared back, and she said, "We'll talk about this when I get home." And she rushed off to the store. For some reason, they had hot dogs that night. Gergak hates hot dogs. That's so precious, though.
The worst teacher Pringle had was incredibly mean and always screamed when they did the smallest things wrong. She made Pringle and his classmates do really hard projects like making them memorize a 3-page script in 1 week and then read out the script in front of the whole class. If they failed, the teacher would hit them on the head or in the stomach with a giant wooden ruler. If she didn't have a ruler, she would twist their ears until they turned red. She ended up getting fired because she twisted the ear of one of his classmates so hard that she ripped a little bit of skin under the ear until it bled. All this because he forgot his notebook. His notebook!
Ladybot met this guy who was older, like way older, which is fine because she likes older men. They went on a date to a nice restaurant and were laughing and having fun until she looked at the door and saw a lady run in. Ladybot was confused but also excited, thinking that she's gonna see this guy or some girl get busted cheating. But she runs up to their table and yells at Ladybot's date. Come to find out, that was his wife, and she was screaming and yelling. He got her out of there because she was getting violent. They got in his car and he explained that him and his wife were still married but were getting divorced. Which Ladybot understood, and they've been together ever since. Now she has a great stepson.
During lunchtime in Pandora's junior year of high school, she was sent to the nurse's office for coughing a little too much. While walking there, she saw a group of 3 well-known delinquents stripping to their undergarments. They then proceeded to hop over the fence to the front of the school, only to meet some guy in a Toyota dressed in a panda costume. Pandora could only wonder what was going on in their minds.
When Civil Spider was 21, he went through a phase of dyeing his hair crazy colors. He worked at a factory, so he was allowed to have any color he wanted. One day he came in with blue hair with pink and red streaks. One of his co-workers stared at Civil Spider for a long time, as if trying to figure out what was different about him. After a while he said, "Hey, did you dye your hair or something?" It took every bit of self-restraint Civil Spider had not to say,
"No, my mom made Skittles when she was pregnant with me and I've had rainbow-colored hair ever since."
Hellbent's middle school banned the red pen. If a red pen was used, students would get suspended from school. It all started with one kid, Nixium, telling his parents that he did not like the red pen marks that the teachers did on their tests or classwork. So one day, the parents went to the school and talked to the teachers and principal about the red pens. The next day, red pens were banned. No one, not even the teachers, could use a red pen. Instead, everyone had to use a black or blue pen.
This one time, Nixium was at Walmart with his mum, dad, and kid sister. His sister was eating a large box of fries as they moved around the store, but she was having a bit of trouble eating and walking at the same time. And Nixium saw her drop a few fries along the way. When they turned around to see how many she dropped, Nixium saw a little 8-year-old kid was picking them up off the floor and eating them. Nixium and his sister started intentionally leaving a trail, and the kid followed them like a seagull. This went on for a while until suddenly the kid's 600-pound mother appeared. She screamed, "Oh, stop eating candy off the ground," and caused a big scene. Nixium laughed so hard he almost cried.
So, me and my boyfriend, yes, my boyfriend who is not Danger Dolan, were going Christmas shopping this past December. And we went by a discount bookstore that has some really weird anime figures that nobody wants and shit. So we wanted to get something that was really risque for our friends. We thought it would be funny. So we walked down to the aisle where the figures were, and there was an employee there who was, I guess, doing employee stuff. So as we were looking, he turned to us and he was like, "I really like your hair." So my boyfriend said, "Oh, which one of us?" And he said, "Both of you. I wish I could have hair like that." So Jess said, "Well, why don't you cut it?" Meaning, like, why don't you cut your own hair? And this motherfucker pulled out a switchblade and was like, "Okay, come here," and pointed it at my boyfriend's face. This was really fucking scary. We've never had a knife pulled on us before, especially after having a casual conversation about hair. So my boyfriend was like, "Whoa there," and I was just like a deer in headlights. I didn't know what to do. And he was like, "Haha, just kidding. Some people don't like my humor," and he put it back in his pocket. And I awkwardly started walking away, and I kind of urged my boyfriend to come with me, and I told him, "I want to get out of this store right now. I feel very uncomfortable." And so we left. We really wanted to call and complain about the guy, but we were like low-key afraid that if we had called, he would be the one to pick up the phone. So we kind of didn't do anything about it. We probably should. I mean, he pulled a knife on us in public and he worked there. What kind of employee pulls a knife on their customers? That's not funny. Don't ever do shit like that. Okay, yeah, that's my story. Shit was fucked.
When Pandora was 16, she caught the subway home from school. One day, a guy got on and started playing music through his phone using a Bluetooth speaker. The three girls next to him thought this was awesome, and so they started singing along. Pandora figured this would annoy everybody else in the carriage, but to her surprise, everyone around her was smiling and laughing along. A few more people joined in on the karaoke, and then a few more. Before long, every single passenger, including Pandora, was singing along. It was the most fun train ride Pandora had ever had, and it totally made her day.
Spincess was playing an online game called Neverwinter. She would often go into the social area and see the same character around, but couldn't work up the courage to say hi. When she eventually worked up the nerve, he logged out just as she typed hi. She kept trying though, and on the third attempt, he replied. Both of them had just left their previous partners and initially didn't want to get into anything deep. But as time went on, they started to like each other more and more, and eventually he asked her out. Only one little problem. Spincess lived in Canada and he lived in the US. They video chatted for a few months while Spincess worked up the funds and organized the paperwork to go visit him. She planned to stay 3 months, but in the end used her full 6-month allowance. During those months together, Spincess worked up the courage and asked him to marry her. After 7 months of paperwork and interviews, she got her K-1 visa to re-enter the States and marry him. They just celebrated their first Valentine's Day as a married couple, and she loves him more than anything. When I was in school, I told everyone that I was a witch and I was actually from a far-off land called Demaria. One of my friends actually joined with me and she thought I was her long-lost sister because she had distant memories of this place. People believed me because I was actually very on point with coincidences. I mean, these coincidences were so spot on that people just had to believe me. They believed it for a very long time, and now I just look back and I cringe at myself because I was a fucking idiot. And honestly, I don't think I was lying to myself. I honestly think I believed myself, which is the worst part. When Mimi was 6, her mom sometimes left her and her brother with a babysitter. At first, this babysitter let them chat and watch movies, but after a while, she forced them to watch Bible cartoons in silence. The babysitter also put a ban on going upstairs, even though that's where the bathroom was. Mimi and her brother became so curious that they snuck upstairs to have a look. Their babysitter caught them and screamed at them, calling Mimi and her brother the children of the devil. She forced them to stand in a corner in total silence and wouldn't let them eat, drink, or even do their homework. This went on until Mimi broke down and told her mom. They ended up getting a new babysitter who was so much nicer. She even let them use the bathroom.